All right, have you heard, I know you've heard the expression, spare the rod, spoil the child? How many have heard that? All right, so somebody help me out here. Where are we going to find that one in the Bible? And look for that one, right? What verse is that, Sarah?
Nowhere.
Oh, man, you're right. It's not found in Scripture. Okay. It's a very commonly used maxim. It's just not actually anything the Bible says. Now, that being said, should we then conclude that corporal punishment, if you want to use that, or corporal discipline, spanking, should we conclude therefore that that is not biblical, that that is not appropriate discipline? Well, I don't think so. In fact, I think the Bible is very clear that it does teach the use of corporal punishment, corporal discipline. But, and we've already been talking about this quite a bit, so I don't have to give you too much here, but we also know that the Bible encourages us as Christians, if you're a Christian tonight, and you're a parent, and the Bible encourages us to use multiple levels of discipline according to wisdom that comes from God. And it takes wisdom, right? We were talking about this just the last couple of weeks, the last couple of lessons, about what we say and how we speak to our children and different kinds of words that we use. And you have to know when is the right time to use which thing. And we talked about that. That it's not always easy to know. And so we have to use wisdom. We have to trust the Lord. And sometimes we're going to get it wrong. And we're going to just respond. And we're not going to maybe use the right tool for that moment. That happens. Okay? It's not good, but it's also inevitable. So what do? Well, we confess our wrongs. We trust the Lord and we continue on. Right? But it's important for us to discuss this. So tonight we really want to look at this. We're going to look at this issue of corporal punishment or corporal discipline as one of the tools, right? Or one of the levels of discipline, the language we use tonight. And we need wisdom from God to understand this. So this is primarily why we're going to be the book of Proverbs, because Proverbs talks about all these things, and it gives us great insight and wisdom on how to do this and when and that. Now, I will just acknowledge, because I want to tell you if I'm taking something from somebody else, this outline and most of these notes are taken from a paper by Paul Wagner that was published in the Journal of the Evangelical Theological Society, okay? Which is actually a fairly prestigious theological journal. You don't normally think of theological journal as a place where you find an article about spanking, okay? But that's what the article is entitled, Spanking, Yes or No, something like that, I forget. It's actually a really helpful article, and if you want to read the whole thing sometime, I'd be glad to give it to you. You can download it for free off the internet. But I'm going to share with you some quotes from Wagner along the way, because I think he really does give some very good thought to this and really helpful thinking through the way the Bible talks about this so we can understand and apply some things. So in our introduction here, I give you a quote there. It's on your paper, and I want to read it to you. But here's what Wagner says. The implication is that this, referring here to discipline, biblical discipline, this is an ongoing responsibility of parenthood, from infancy to at least late teens. But it does not mean that the same disciplinary techniques will be used throughout this process, or that spanking will be the supreme disciplinary technique. Okay. Unfortunately, for some people, the only discipline technique they can think of is spanking. Right? And we've already talked about that. We actually haven't talked about spanking, I don't think at all, really, up until this point. And that was kind of on purpose. I kind of avoided it because I wanted to talk about other principles first. But really, most of what we've already said about teaching and instructing and directing and correcting and all of those things, that's all parts of discipline. So spanking is going to be one tool, one thing. But some people, that's all they know, and that's all they use. It's like, again, the maxim is if the only tool you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. Okay, well, if that's the only tool in your toolbox, then you're going to try to make sense of that. But that's not right. That's not biblical. Okay? It's not helpful. And frankly, it's not healthy. And that's what we're going to look at here. We want all of these things to be here. So it's not even going to be the supreme technique. Okay? I would argue that it should, I would argue it should be fairly rare in the grand scheme of things. There may be seasons where it's a little bit more common than others. Okay? But I would say in general, over the lifetime of your parenting of your children, it would probably be a fairly small factor in the overall thing. Okay? But used properly and judiciously, it can be very effective and helpful. And I think biblical in doing it. But let's talk about the levels of discipline. Okay, so we're going to start with level 1. What's level 1 discipline? Well, encourage proper behavior. Right? This is level 1 discipline. You may not think of this as in terms of discipline, but that's exactly what it is. A wise parent encourages a child to behave properly. Okay? So if you have your Bible, or if not, there's a Bible probably in front of you underneath a seat close by where you can get a hand on it. If you have to catch your phone, you can look it up in the Bible, whatever. But I really would like for your help. There's a lot of verses, and I'd like for you to participate if you can. So if you can get a Bible in front of you and look up one of these verses, that'd be really helpful to us. Let's start with Proverbs 1, 8, and 9, and then we're going to do Proverbs 2. So you can see them, they're listed for you. If you just look them up and be ready to go when we get there, that will help us speed things along too, and we can go faster tonight. So who's got Proverbs 1? Michael? Okay. 8 and 9.
My son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother, for they will be a graceful ornament on your head and chains about your neck.
Okay, this is an example of Solomon, the writer here. What's he doing? He is encouraging his son to behave properly. That's what this is, right? Encouraging him to listen to your mother, right? Listen to your father's instruction. Listen to your mother's teaching. That's what he's saying. So this is encouragement, and this is the kind of thing that we should do a lot, right? So let's keep going. Proverbs 2, 2 through 5. Sarah.
So that you incline your ear to wisdom and apply your heart to understanding. Yes, if you cry out for discernment and lift up your voice for understanding. If you seek her as silver and search for her as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God.
Okay, what is he trying to encourage his son to do here in these verses?
Cry out to the Lord.
Okay, and yes, cry out to the Lord. Well, not interesting. He doesn't say to the Lord here.
I thought that's what she said. Sorry.
I don't think so.
It says
Oh,
cry
for
out
discernment.
Yeah.
Okay. So the issue here is, or the purpose here is it's implied. We might say it's implied that he's crying out to the Lord. But the key is, what is he pursuing? What is he trying to get his son to do here?
To discern the right thing to do.
Well, to chase after that, right? That's the idea here. Like, look at verse 4. What kind of language does he use in verse 4 for what his son is to do? What he's encouraging his son to do here?
Seek and search.
Okay? Seek and search. It's like go on a treasure hunt. Okay? Because that's what he says, right? Look for it like hidden treasure, like silver, right? How do you look for treasure? How do you look for silver? Well, you dig for it. You don't look, here's the thing. You don't look for treasure in the way most of our kids look for stuff, right? Right? You know what I'm talking about, right? And you say, hey, can you go find this? And they walk in, they come back 30 seconds later, it's not there. Like, I know it's there. I saw it there. I know it. In fact, I can tell you where it is. I can tell you right now, if I just go to the stand there, it's right here. And you have to kind of like prod them to keep looking, right? That's not, what is he saying? Search for this like you're a treasure hunter. Okay? You're digging. You're searching. Everything that even looks like it might be a clue, like maybe there's some silver there, that's where I'm going to go, right? If any hint of a sign, I'm going to go after it, because that's what I'm searching for. That's what he's saying. And what is it we're searching for? Wisdom, right? So this is tell your son, tell your daughter, search for wisdom. Wisdom is really important. You need it. Okay? By the way, just as an aside, but I'll just tell you, it's really helpful. I like to listen to, ever since he died, I started listening to Tim Keller's sermons. And I can't vouch for Tim Keller and everything. I'm not trying to say that, okay? But they've got a podcast and they replay his sermons. I mean, the guy was a pastor for decades and he's got lots and lots of sermons online. And I've been listening to some just off and on recently. And he's done a series on wisdom, and it is really, really excellent. Because he really gets to the heart of what wisdom is, right? Wisdom is not about knowing what's right and wrong. Wisdom goes beyond that. Wisdom goes beyond just knowing the difference between right and wrong. It goes into how to live in a way that's excellent, and it's got some great stuff. So I've been listening to some of those really good stuff, and it's been encouraging to me. And then of course it challenged me to think, okay, how can I communicate some of these things to my kids? How can I help them to seek after wisdom? That's what Solomon is instructing his son to do here. Okay, here's what Wagner says. I'll give you another quote from him. He says, a wise parent encourages a child to see the benefits of proper behavior. When a child can actually see the benefits of proper behavior, it is logical that he or she would choose this behavior, at least in some cases. We can't expect them to choose every time. I understand that, right? They're kids. They're not always going to do the right thing every time. But if we tell them, hey, this is where this leads, go pursue. I'll give you an example. So Michael's been working at Pizza Ranch for what, 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years?
2-something years.
You were 14 when you started. It's been more than 2 years.
Yeah,
But
it was 2
when
years.
Michael started working there, one of the things I did is I sat down with Michael and I did something my dad did with me. And my dad talked to me when I was Michael's age about investing for retirement, right? And you know how exciting that is for a teenager to hear about investing for retirement. But what I did, I actually, and I'm not throwing my dad under the bus. I'm thankful for my dad's instruction on this. I wish he'd gone one step further. And so I did this with Michael, and I've done it with Grace, and I need to do it with Lydia. But I sat down and I showed him, okay, Michael, if you start putting money away right now, 14 years old of age, you're old, you got a job, that means you can start doing a retirement account. If you start doing that right now, you don't have to put a whole lot of money away every month, but it's a little bit of money, you start putting that away every month. And here, we'll sit down and do the calculations. Let's do some conservative numbers, and we did. We calculated it out, and I said, by the time you hit retirement, you're looking at $2 to $3 million sitting in this account, and you're not putting very much money into this. Okay. I said, now, if as you get older and you're making more money, you put more money in it, then it'll be even more. But I said, the key is starting so young. If you just keep discipline, putting a little bit of money in there every month, this will grow, and it will be a significant amount of money by the time you get to retirement age. That's a really good thing for you to do. And my dad told me that, and then that was where it ended. Well, what I did with Michael is I said, okay, here's what we do. I'm going to call my investment guy, Michael, and we're going to call him, we're going to get him on the phone, and we're going to ask him, can we set up an account for Michael? And we did. So Michael started an account 2 years ago. Grace started an account last year. Now I got to get on Lydia because she's got a job now, so I got to get her started. But and now, I say all this, okay? I say this, the reason I say this is I think what I'm trying to do is what Solomon is saying. I'm trying to encourage them to make a good choice by showing them the proper behavior. This is not a moral issue, right? You understand, but I'm trying to give them a good choice and say, hey, here's the benefits, right? Here's why this is a good idea. And I laid it all out for them. Yeah, you know what it means? You're not going to have quite as much money right now in your bank account because it's not going in your bank account. And you won't have that money to spend. So on a car or on college even, you won't have that money. Okay, so it may get tight at some point, but you're thinking long term. And if you do that and you just keep thinking that way, this will pay off huge down the road. So I want my kids to be in a position to make a decision, but I want to encourage them. Are they going to always make the right, are they always going to prioritize it? No. I understand, they're kids. But the point here is that if we can give our kids instruction about what is the right behavior to do, okay, that we can encourage them to do it, and sometimes they're going to see, well, it makes a lot of sense just to do the right thing here. Okay. Because mom and dad have talked to me about this, and they're encouraging me to do this, and they're saying it's a good thing, and it makes sense, I'm going to do it. Okay. So every time the kid does that, that's a win right there, right? Because you've given them encouragement to do the right thing, and they saw that it was a good idea, and then they did it. And wow, great. That's one less mess you have to clean up, okay? Yeah.
I really appreciate that point, and it makes me think about something I've been thinking about a lot with Gavin lately is even simple things like cleaning his room. I couldn't just send him in his room and go clean your room, and all sorts of different things like that, where a lot of parents will just go get angrier and angrier, more and more frustrated, like, why aren't you just doing the thing I want you to do? Yeah. It's like, okay, how do I break that down and then teach and show? And it makes me think about our parents told us, oh, invest early, but they never set up accounts for us. Right. And just that doing the thing for them and getting them started so then they see, so that's what you're talking about.
And again, it's always age appropriate. Right. So at Gavin's age, what are you doing? Well, it's the cleaning your room stuff. So you're going in there and you're explaining to him what I want you to do.
What it looks like, how to do it.
What's the, not clean your room, but okay, these count 5 toys and pick up 5 toys, or whatever it is that he can do in the age they understand. And you say, okay, and then you show him how to do it and you do it. But you're encouraging that's all part of discipline, right? Because you're teaching your kids to be disciplined by giving them proper things. You're showing them what you want them to do and then helping them, encouraging them to do that, okay? Let's look at some more. Proverbs 3, 13 through 15.
Happy is the man who finds wisdom and the man who gains understanding. For Her proceeds are better than the profits of silver, and her gain than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things you may desire cannot compare with her.
Son, if you get wisdom, it's better than getting money. Right? That's good instruction right there. That's the kind of encouragement we need to give to our kids. Proper behavior. Chase after things that really matter. Okay? All right, how about Proverbs 4, 7, 8?
Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and in all your getting, get understanding. Exalt her, and she will promote you. She will bring you honor when you embrace her.
Okay? So, the key here is this, right? What he's saying with this whole issue of wisdom is there are a lot of things that people want out of life that the more they pursue them, the harder they are to get. Happiness is one of those things. The more you try to be happy, the less happy you will be. But you find happiness when you stop trying to be happy. It's crazy. It's counterintuitive in some ways, right? When you start embracing the roles and responsibilities you have, you find happiness comes along. But the more you pursue happiness, the harder it is to get. But the key here is, don't pursue being exalted. Don't pursue wealth. Pursue wisdom. And wisdom will exalt you. Wisdom will then result in these things. But you got to pursue wisdom and not these other things. Okay? They will come in the deal. That's kind of. But again, this is give my kid, show them the avenue that's the right way to go. Again, how many times do our kids fail at small things because they really actually don't know? We assume they know the way to go, but they don't. Okay? And so we can tell them. And the reason I say that is I know from my own experience, not just as a kid, right? But even as an adult, that sometimes I just blew it because I wasn't aware that there was a better way to do this. I didn't know. And why would I assume my kids just know it? No, I need to give them that way. So that's big, level one, and this is again, as we said before, this is really probably these, I would say, as we go up these levels of discipline, we probably go to, they probably shrink in the amount of time, or you know what I mean? Like, they become less and less a percentage of the parenting, okay? Even when we ramp up the level of discipline. This one is the big one. We do this a lot, we should do this a lot, okay? Let's go to level 2. Level 2 is in form of improper behavior. Okay? Again, a wise parent is proactive and addresses certain issues before the child might be confronted by them. This is really important too. Guess what? You, as a parent, have lived a lot longer than your kids. Yeah, it's still true. It's still true. You've lived a lot longer. What does that mean? Well, among other things, it means you have a perspective. You have learned some things by hard experience. And that means that you can anticipate things they don't even know about yet. Problems that they don't even know. Dangers that they don't even know about. And you can prepare them, informing them, hey, when you get to this crossroads, watch out. Because I'm telling you, there's a danger here. And I know what it is. And I want to help you see it. I want to help you prepare for it. I want to tell you that's the wrong way to go. Okay. All right? So, this is the parent who warns their child, say, about drinking and drugs when they're just maybe it seems like it's a little bit too early. Maybe it seems like they haven't really encountered that yet. Their friends aren't, but this is coming. At some point this is going to be, there's going to be the offer. There's going to be that circumstance they're going to find themselves in where this is being presented. Okay. What are they going to do? Well, if you tell them ahead of time and inform them, hey, this is the wrong way. Don't go that way. Right? Then you help them. You help them prepare. Okay. Let's look at a couple of scriptures. Proverbs 1, 10 through 15.
My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait to shed blood. Let us lurk secretly for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them alive like Sheol and whole like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all kinds of precious possessions. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in your lot among us. Let us all have one purse. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Keep your foot from their path.
Okay, notice at the beginning, if sinners, if they say, this has not happened yet. And yet what is he doing? He's saying, son, when you're confronted with this choice, when you've got friends who are coming up to you trying to get you involved in a violent scheme, a scheme, this is a scheme of violence, this is a scheme of theft, this is a scheme of something that is wrong, that you know is wrong. Son, when you face that, when you've got this pressure from all of these friends, and they're trying to tell you to do this thing and you know it's wrong, don't listen to them. So he's warning him before he faces the choice, right? Because I know my child might be confronted with this, I want to warn him ahead of time. Okay, Proverbs 3:31 and 32.
Do not envy the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. For the perverse person is an abomination to the Lord, but his secret counsel is with the upright.
Now this is interesting because this is not presenting a situation where someone is coming to your child and saying, hey, do this. But aren't there times where you observe somebody who's in a position of power, that the oppressor, the person who has the power, the bully maybe, and you think, oh man, I'm tired of getting pushed around. I want to be the one doing the pushing. That's a temptation. So how do I prepare my kid for that? I warn him. I tell him, there's going to be times where maybe you will be in a position that you could push somebody around, you could throw your weight around, you could be the one in control. You get things your way. Okay? Don't give in to that temptation, because verse 32 says God detests that, and you're putting yourself in opposition to him. So you're warning your child about a potential temptation that they're going to face, whether it's temptation from without, somebody coming, or temptation here from within, something that's internal to them. They see and they think, oh, my heart wants that. Okay, son, how do I prepare for that? Now, again, you have to be wise here, but and this is where you have to be wise. You have to be. Just takes grace here, okay? I can't give you and I don't have like a chart to say, okay, well at age 3 you should be telling your kid about this, and at age 5 this, and at age 8 this. It's going to vary based on your kid and your circumstances. And again, you're going to blow it, or I say you're going to blow it. You're going to miss it. You're going to miss it. It's just going to happen, right? In spite of your best efforts, in spite of your best intentions, you're going to miss something that you wish you prepared your kid for. Okay? There's grace, right? That's what we have to remember. There's grace, because we do not know everything. We don't, but we're going to do the best we can. This is something that we're going to try and do. We're going to try and prepare our kids for the things they're going to face, that we know they're going to face. Okay? And this is really important. Okay? Wagner says this: if we educate our children concerning inappropriate behavior early enough, they will begin to associate wrong behavior with undesirable consequences, and thus hopefully avoid the behavior. This kind of instruction, that kind of instruction can occur very early. Again, these are things we can talk about with the kids when they're very, very little. We talk about it on their level, we talk about it in things they can understand, but we talk about it to them. We explain to the toddler why we're not going to do that, because that's wrong, and then this is the result. Okay? We're hoping to help them to be able to match those things up and learn from that, okay? And avoid making those wrong decisions even from an early age. All right, level 3. If you have questions, stop or raise your hand or something along the way. Level 3, explain the negative consequences of sin. This one goes hand in hand with the previous one, but it is a little bit more. A wise parent points out the negative consequences of sin that lie along the path of life. Okay, so let's go back to chapter 1, verses 18 and 19 again. We read the verses leading up to this. This is the warning. This is when he says, don't go with the friends who are trying to get you to join them in a violent scheme. Verses 18 and 19. Why?
I got it.
Okay.
But they lie in wait for their own blood. They lurk secretly for their own lives. So they are ways of everyone who is greedy and for gain. It takes away the life of its owners. Okay.
He says, these are the people who are saying, let's set a trap for this innocent guy who has no idea. We're going to trap him, we're going to attack him, we're going to rob him. And here Solomon says, don't listen to them because they're actually setting a trap for themselves, right? The person who does this, the person who chooses to live this way, is attacking their own life, right? He says, everyone who is greedy, everyone who desires to have dishonest gain is trading that for their life. So the warning here not to do this also then includes this. Here's what happens if you do it. Here's where this road leads. Okay. So again, to couple that, I mentioned before, you warn your kid, right, about the dangers of alcohol and drinking alcohol. Somebody's going to offer you a drink. Okay. Someone's going to offer you this. You're going to be pressured to do it. Everybody's going to be doing it. You're going to think it's a cool thing to do or whatever. Okay, but understand something. If you choose to go down that road, here's the consequence. Here's where it leads, right? And it's devastating. And so you warn them because I want you to know if you choose the path of sin, if you choose to give into this and indulgence, you choose to give yourself to this, it will destroy you. Here's where it leads, and that's where it's important to point that out, okay? And see some of those consequences. Okay, how about Proverbs 5, 3 through 6? Levi? Okay.
For the lips of an immoral woman drip honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But in the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps lay full of hell. Lest you ponder her path of life, her ways are unstable. You do not know.
Again, we've said this before, but this is not just referring to women. He's using women because he's speaking to his son. That's why he uses this as an example here, okay? But you understand, right? Young people don't understand the power of seduction. They don't. Young boys and men don't understand the power of a woman, and vice versa, right? Young girls, teenage girls, they don't get it. They don't understand what guys will say to them and how they'll use them. So what do we do as parents? We have to warn them. We have to tell them, one, don't do it, but then we have to say why. Because here's what he says. He says, why don't you do this? Because it's her tongue is actually like a sword. And her steps, the steps of her house, they actually lead down to hell. To death, right? Death and destruction. And actually all through these chapters there's all this. This is important. Wagner says this, none of us want our children to make the same mistakes we have. A wise parent helps extend the vision of the child. I like that phrase. Wise parent helps extend the vision of the child, helping them to see the long-term consequences of sinful behavior, right? We understand that children do not have the capacity, they don't have the perspective because they're not old enough, they haven't lived enough. And we also know, even just from like a physiological standpoint, we're learning about brain development. We're understanding that children's brains develop a lot more slowly than we maybe realize, we used to think. So they're often literally not capable of thinking long-term enough to be able to make a wise decision. That's why they need parents. So they need us to tell them, you make this choice and it leads in a very, very bad way. Right? Don't go down that path. And that's what we need. So we need to be involved in this, in this level of discipline, right? As we instruct our children, warning them. Okay? All right, let's go on level 4. We're gradually ramping up here. Okay, level 4, gently exhort. Gently exhort. Wise parents will, on an ongoing basis, advise and exhort their children against sin that can easily become a pattern and encourage them to use wisdom. Right? Some of this is just hard-won experience. Right? Look at Proverbs 4, 1 and 2.
Hear, my children, the instruction of a father, and give attention to know understanding. For I give you good doctrine. Do not forsake my law.
Okay? Do not. He's giving a gentle exhortation here. This is not a confrontational rebuke. This is just exhorting you. Son, do not ignore this. Do not ignore what I'm saying. This is important, and you need to know it. Okay? How about verses 14 to 16, same chapter?
Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evil. Avoid it, do not travel on it. Turn away from it and pass on. For they do not sleep unless they have done evil, and their sleep is taken away unless they make someone fall.
Notice how he just repeats, right? Don't do this, avoid this, go away from it. Like, why? Because he's exhorting here. Okay? He's repeating the encouragement here to avoid the sinful path and to choose the wise path. So again, this is like the cheerleading part of it. Okay, we've given the instruction, we've explained where this leads, we've told them about what the dangers are, and now we're going to cheerlead them. Okay. By the way, the other thing that's key here, you'll notice this, is that the parent is exhorting, but the child is the one who's making the choice. So this is all age appropriate, right? You don't let your 5-year-old make some of these choices. You do let them make choices, you should. You should gradually be letting them make more choices. So your 5-year-old should make more choices than your 3-year-old than they made when they were 3. You know, should have the freedom to do a little bit more things, okay? And, you know, get themselves dressed. So at some point, you should be able to say, go clean the room. I'm gonna set the timer for 10 minutes. I want you to spend 10 minutes cleaning the room. I'm gonna come and check on it. And that's all the instruction I have to give, because I've already shown you the other things. Now, you can't do that at, he's 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't probably do that at 4, but maybe by 6, 7, you could start doing that. I don't know, I mean, whatever age, okay? And again, it's gonna vary each child. So some of you may do that when your child is 6, and some of them may be 8. You never know, whatever, and you can say this, right? With one child, it's gonna be one age, with another child, it's gonna be a different age, because your children are different, right? The point here is that this is, though, when I'm saying, okay, now, remember we talked about this, you know the right thing to do, okay? So please do the right thing. I want to encourage you to do the right thing. We've talked about this. So I'm not having to repeat all the instruction I've given. I'm just encouraging, hey, choose the right thing. Choose the right thing, okay? Make the right choice. So this is the cheerleading portion, if you will, right? Gently exhorting. I'm going to remind, I'm going to encourage, I'm going to advise. And so the older my kids get, the more this becomes what I do a lot of the time. I've already given them a lot of the instruction. They know what they're supposed to do. Now I just say, hey, remember what you're supposed to be doing? Okay, please do that. And, keep encouraging that, okay? Now, the next, level 5, this kind of goes hand in hand, right? So what happens if they're not necessarily listening to that? What if they make the wrong choice? Well, gently rebuke or reprove. The wise parent knows when to use rebuke properly. Okay, we've already talked about rebuke. We'll just read a couple verses and then we'll move on. Okay, Proverbs 3:12.
For whom the Lord loves, he corrects, just as a father the son in whom he delights.
Okay. So the son, the correction here is the idea that he's chosen the wrong path. So what am I doing? I'm going to tell him, nope, that was the wrong way to go. Go the right way. That's the rebuke. That's the confrontation. I'm just correcting. I'm just saying, hey, nope, that was, you didn't make the right choice today on that one. Okay? But the conversation here is, we've already talked about what the right choice is. We've already talked about what the wrong choice is and what the consequences are. So I'm not going into all that. I'm just saying, hey, okay, you were faced with a choice, you didn't make the right one. Let's correct that. Okay? But this is saying this is the loving thing for a father to do, because God does this in love. Okay? And so we do this too. All right, how about 24, Proverbs 24, 24, and 25.
People says to the wicked, you are righteous. Him the people will curse. The nations will I can't say that word, but someone else chip in. I can't read the word.
What is it? Where is it? 24.
That might be the wrong reference. Hold on, let me double check that to see, because I'm not sure if that's right.
Supposed to be 4, 24 through 25?
Abhor.
But those who rebuke the wicked will have delight, and a good blessing will come upon them.
I'm looking at that, trying to see if that's the right reference or not. I don't know.
Is it supposed to be Proverbs 4, 24 through 25?
I was looking at that too, and I was trying to decide if that's the right reference or not. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure, we'll skip that one, because I can't remember, I may have copied that one down wrong, I don't know. But that's okay. So Wagner says this, hopefully, and this is, I think is a good point, hopefully if parents have done their job well up to this point, far less rebuking is necessary. Okay? If we've done a lot of instructing, if we've done the explaining of the dangers of the wrong path and why we don't go down that way, and we've exhorted, we've encouraged, and hopefully by the time we get to this point, we're not having to clean up a lot of messes. We're not having to rebuke because our children are making generally wise choices. They're growing and they're making good decisions in their context that we've given them, okay? And they're starting to do that. That's the hope, okay? Now, okay, what happens if they don't? Well, that's where we come to chapter. Yeah, please.
So on the topic of rebuke, I think
Yeah.
this is kind of the first time in this list that this has kind of come up.
Mhm.
Like, in the scenario of a fairly minor thing.
Sure.
Little kid, you know, they were told to do this, they did the wrong thing.
Mhm.
You have to deal with that situation, some sort of consequence. A lot of like parenting content online these days is, I see really helpful examples of a parent just, okay, you did the wrong thing, here's the consequence, move on with life, stuff like that. And I appreciate those examples of cheerful fun, honestly, like, okay, you did the wrong thing, here's the consequence, we move on with life. It doesn't have to be like an angry thing, which is nice for my brain to see those examples of consistent, here's a consequence, you know, we talked about it ahead of time, this was going to be the consequence, you have your consequence, we move on with life. So, just to jump off from that,
Sure.
Whatever you wanna.
Well, I was gonna say, my experience, and I think even from what we see in Scripture, just from the sinfulness of the human heart, I think it's rare that we're going to be able to do that and have it be a lighthearted thing.
I don't know if
unless it's genuinely such a minor thing that
Sure.
it really doesn't matter.
I don't know if I meant so much like a lighthearted, but like, I'm having a hard time describing.
Well, okay, so I'll just give you an example. So if you're telling your son to go and pick up 5,
Sure.
cars from the floor of the living room and put them in this bin here, right? And he picks them up and puts them on the couch instead, right? Well, I'm not sure that necessarily calls for a
Sure.
DEFCON 1. We're gonna we're gonna go. That's the point, right? But I'm gonna have to correct it.
Sure.
I can't just go, oh well, whatever, no, it's like, okay, no, I have to correct it. So this is probably, again, primarily gonna be verbal, right? What did mommy tell you to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, what happens is when the kid is defiant, that's actually where we move to the next levels here. But the point is, like, if my child is compliant along the way here, I don't have to go past this. It doesn't have to become a big confrontation if I say, well, what did mommy say? Well, you should have put it in the box. What did you do? Well, was that obeying? Was it listening? Oh, no. Well, then let's obey, right? It doesn't have to be a big deal, but I've corrected the behavior and I've corrected the authority structure, right? Mommy told you to do this and you didn't do it, so let's pick those up and now let's put them away. And by me stepping in, again, and I'll notice that too, part of what I would say there too is that we can't allow that to go on and on and on, right? If I've told him to do this and he doesn't do it, I need to intervene right away. Now, to intervene doesn't mean I grab the spoon, okay? Well, whatever, right? Intervene means I intervene, and a lot of times, most of the time it can be verbal. Now, when you've got a house full of kids, it gets complicated, and it's not always easy to do this, and that's where you really have to just, there's a lot of hard logistics of this that you just do the best you can and trust the Lord to give wisdom in that, and you can't always go through all the steps of everything all the time. It can't always be a long drawn out thing, but I want to be able to correct, and then I'm looking for what I'm looking for is what's the response going to be when I correct, when I say, no, that wasn't what I said to do. What's the response? If the response is going to be, okay, mommy, and I go put them away, then thank you for doing that. Now we're good. If the response is defiance, now we have to move to something more than that. And that's where, again, simple correction that's pleasant. It doesn't have to be angry or harsh or even loud. It can be, I mean, one of my favorite teachers in school, the hardest teachers I had in 8th grade, Miss Westfall. She was, man, she was in some ways a tyrant. And I mean that in a good way. I mean, she controlled her classroom. Okay? We gave her a run for her money, but she, I think, in the end still won. We were pretty tough. But the thing is, she was always sweet. Well, she was telling me to go to the principal's office. And she was always, but she knew how to use her voice. She didn't have to raise her voice to get your attention. In fact, oftentimes she would lower her voice. And you knew that was much more serious. So I think, again, we can do this, and we should do this as much as we can with sweet and gentle tones, and we should try to strive for that as much as possible, because I think that's good for our kids in general, and we prefer that. It keeps our blood pressure lower too. But again, the issue then comes in what happens when there's that defiance, and that's where we always have to deal with that. And what I'm going to suggest, and what I'm suggesting here, I think is everything always starts at level 1. We only move up the scale as needed, and only as far as needed. And as soon as we can go back down, we go back down. And that's the mistake that some people make, is they go rampant right up, and then they never go down, because they don't have anything but that, we're going all nuclear. And that's a problem. And we see a lot of really bad kind of examples of that sometimes.
I guess I'm just thinking about, I think secular parenting world is doing a sort of good job right now of giving examples of just doing that consistent work with kind of a joyful attitude, and I haven't seen a ton of examples of that in more Christian circles, which is really a shame.
Well, I can't really speak to what secular circles are doing in that regard, other than to simply say that we're really good as people at presenting the image of what we want people to see, and not presenting the actual truth of what is really going on. And so I would simply say, I'm not speaking, I would simply say that if someone says, my wife had a lady tell her this one time years ago, that she just decided one day she wasn't going to yell at her kids anymore. She never yelled at her kids after that, ever. I thought, oh, that's nice. And we went, okay, file that one in the I don't believe this category. We didn't tell her that, but we're like, no, okay, whatever. I'm sorry. I just don't, I'm not saying I'm just saying you're a human being, and you're going to do the wrong thing, even though you know it's the wrong thing. That we're all sinners, and we can't deny the sinfulness of our own hearts, of our children's hearts, and anybody else's hearts. And anybody out there who will deny that is lying. And so I can't say about any specific things, but I would just say in general, we need to be careful, because especially in the internet world, we all tend to put that really good face up there of, well, this is what we do, and it really works. And I'm like, yeah, well, try that when you've got a room full of kids and they're all freaking out at the same time. I don't see you, being calm, and no, you're just like everybody else. But you don't let on that, because that would blow the paradigm. Okay. And I think anyways, that's.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I've been listening to a podcast by a Christian who comes at an angle of, because right now gentle parenting is very popular or whatever. But she talks about how gentle parenting is not biblical, but biblical parenting is gentle. And just that perspective is like, oh. And it kind of talks about this, like, this is gentle, but it's biblical. And there's a gentle where your kids, like, I know somebody who's like, well, we let them decide whether or not, an example would be, the kid asks to have M&Ms for dinner. And the mom goes, well, you can't have M&Ms for dinner, but I'll put a couple on your plate with your dinner. And I'm like, well, you never, but you said they can't have them, but now you're giving them to them for dinner. Or we let them choose when they want to go to bed because, you know, like that kind of, and I know that's not what you're getting at, but it can easily shift into that
Sure.
of like, oh, it sounds really good and awesome, but sometimes it shifts into like unbiblical versus like this, like biblical parenting is gentle, but we are the ones who make it, make it not. But I don't know.
No, and I would say again, if there was no sin nature in our own hearts and in the hearts of our children, then sure, we wouldn't really need much in the way of this stuff. But the reality is, it's not how you respond when the kid is compliant. That's easy. It's how you respond when the kid is defiant and refuses. Just flat, insanely, against all reason, refuses to do what you say. And refuses to do what is necessary and right in that moment. And sometimes even what is safe, right? You guys have been there. Your kid literally does not realize that they have put themselves in danger and you are trying to protect them and they are resisting and fighting you. And you're like, what is wrong with you, kid? But they don't know that. They don't understand. And that's why you have to be able to deal with it. But it starts way before that point. And that's what we're trying to get at here. Is we have a whole lot of other stuff to do ahead of time. And then what do we do when that doesn't work? What do we do when the defiance, what do we do when that sin nature continues its destructive path? Because it's there. It's in their heart, just like it's in ours. And if it's not confronted and dealt with, we know where it leads. We know where it leads in us. I hope you know that. I hope you see the darkness that you have the potential to go into at any moment if you just embrace that. I hope you see that in you. You know it's there. Well, you know what? It's in your kid too. Every one of them. And you'll never even get. Well, anyways. Let me just mention this next one. We're not going to get through it. We're just going to, but I want to mention this. Okay? Because it might catch you off guard a little bit. That's okay. I hope it does. Level 6. Corporal punishment that does not cause physical harm. You might be able to guess what the next point is, but we'll get there. Corporal punishment that does not cause physical harm. A wise parent knows when to use corporal, non-abusive punishment. Okay, the language here is specific and on purpose. This is intentional, right? Wise parent uses corporal, non-abusive punishment. Right? Let's just look at the one verse right now. We have time for one, Proverbs 19:18, and we'll come more on this. Proverbs 19:18. That is not the, I'm in the wrong chapter. That would make sense. Can somebody read that one first? Proverbs 19:18.
Is it chasten or chasten?
Chasten.
Chasten your son while there is hope, and do not set your heart on his destruction.
Okay. Chasten, the word chasten here refers to physical discipline. Okay. We would use the word spanking for that, right? Typically what we think of. Here's what Wagner says about this, and it is this, based on this verse, right? It says, this says, discipline your son, or chasten your son while there is still hope. It implies that there will come a point where there's not hope, right? Don't set your heart on being the cause of his death. That's just how the Christian Standard Bible translates it. Here's what Wagner says. The main intent of this corporal punishment appears to be that temporary punishment is better than allowing wickedness or evil to run wild and lead to more serious punishment. The wise parent uses only the level of discipline necessary to curb the incorrect behavior. Right? So the idea here is, I'm going to discipline my son. I'm going to chasten my son. I'm going to physically punish because there's a hope that I can prevent this from getting worse, I can prevent this from going further. I can prevent this sin and evil from increasing. Right? So I'm only going so far as I need to prevent that. That's all I'm doing. Okay? So this is not the correction, cure-all. This is there's a concern that if my child is left to his own way here, he is going to increasingly go down a path of wickedness and evil, destruction for himself or others. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to bring something painful into his life, right? And that is temporary, but it is intended to stem off that, right? To keep us from going that direction. Okay. we'll look at more of this next time. Yes, ma'am.
But like an example of that be like, instead of your kid getting hit by a car, you'd spank their butt.
Yeah, but I
After
think
you've
actually
told
moral
them.
evil is in view here. So I would say, yes, that's one example, but I would say, okay, my child lies to me and gets away with lying. It may not seem like a big deal, but actually, my child is learning something from that, aren't they? They're learning a way of living. They're gonna apply not just to me, but to other people. So the reality is, if I don't deal with that, my child will grow up learning that, one, this is okay, and two, it's very effective. And they'll be able to use it. And so it will actually, if I don't deal with it, and then like in our home, lying is something we deal with early, quickly, and in ways that they don't like. Okay. So you can use things to make them realize, hey, lying is going to cause you pain, right? But the reason is I don't want you to continue, because if you do that and you think that's okay, and you continue to do that, that leads to a really destructive place. See, so that even just the moral peril of that. So yeah, there may be something like, there's actual physical danger, but it might also be spiritual, moral danger. Okay? And if I understand there's a moral danger that's very serious, I want to inflict significant enough pain here that to bring that awareness that there is danger here, and I want to get them to pull back. That's what I'm going for, and that's what we're looking at. So we'll pick this up next week, and there's a lot more to say about it. You can see we've got quite a few verses to look at there, and then several more things to say there. Plus, there's still a couple levels of